Hey patrons, how are you doing? In this video I will be drawing two eyes. I am working in Procreate and I am going to talk you through all the steps I'm taking. I've speeded up the process with 200%. It's 200% speed, but I think you will be able to see what I'm doing here. And if it's going too fast, you can always slow down the video by using the settings in the YouTube menu, in the settings thingy in the lower right corner. And as you can see, I am in the sketching phase right now, using one of my sketch brushes, and I'm keeping it really loose, focusing on the size and on the angles that I see in the eyes. Usually when I sketch eyes, I have 3 angles on the upper side of the eye and two angles on the lower side. I make a little bit of an angular shape first before I go and sketch the more flowing lines, the curves. It helps me to start with straight lines in my sketch and really think about the angles and how long the line should be, and it helps me measure in my sketch. So I just focus on the eyebrows right now and the eyelids and the size of the eyes. And now I am also sketching in the iris. And you can keep the sketch just nice and loose. It doesn't have to be tidy. Really focus on those sizes and get those right. And I'm filling in the pupils, but that's not really necessary. But it kind of helps me to see if I'm on the right track here. I feel the right eye is a little bit too big. I'm making it a little bit smaller. Here I'm sketching that thickness of the lid. So that's that edge, that plane you can see. Because maybe you've seen my YouTube video with the 10 tips about drawing eyes. And the fact that the eyelids have a certain thickness, that's a very important one. So always try to keep that in mind. When you look at eyes from this perspective, you will see that edge on the lower eyelid and sometimes also on the upper eyelid. I'm just slowly adjusting my sketch. And the thing is, with drawing two eyes, I think we all know the problem about drawing the second eye. It's always a thing, how to draw the second eye. But if you're having problems drawing the second eye, then don't approach it as the second eye, but draw both eyes at the same time. Here I've increased the size of my sketch bit, and I have made a new layer below the sketch layer, and I'm using my basic flow brush here to add some shadow. I've picked a color that is slightly darker than the base tone that I had already laid down on my canvas. When I'm painting something like this, eyes or whatever, I like to put down a base color first. So I'm really, I'm roughly painting this in, using a bit warmer tones right now. I'm keeping it nice and messy, and at this stage And there's really no need to blend yet. I'm only focusing on the values and on the colors, roughly placing them. Coloring the iris, using some green. A little bit of shadow here. Some brown color. Because when the light is coming from above, you will see a shadow on the upper part of the eye. So below the upper eyelid, there will be a shadow. Because of that thickness of the eyelid, it will, yeah, it's overlapping the eyeball, casting a shadow. And the same thing goes for the lower eyelids. The lower eyelids, well, the underside of the eyelids, there's a little bit of a curve there because of the eyeball that is round. You will see a slight shadow on that lower eyelid where the transition is to the cheek. Still just loosely adding color, and I have lowered the opacity of the sketch layer so I can focus more on the painting layer. I'm going to focus on the harder edges now, adding some shadow with the darkened line brush from my basic flow brush set. And I've just picked the skin tone. And when using a brush like this, like my darkened line brush, it's important to paint on a layer that already has color on it, because it is set to multiply, and if you paint on a separate layer, it won't work that well. So I'm just using it to also paint in the pupils and that crease above the upper eyelid that will be in shadow, so I need to make that darker. And still, there's no need to be all tidy. It's still a bit messy. Drawing that outline of the iris, because that's usually pretty dark. And now I am going to blend the colors a bit, making it more soft. I'm using my basic blender brush. It's one of my favorites. And I'm getting back at my darkened line brush. Oh, no, multiply. Change my mind. Using the multiply brush, I'm adding some more shadow to this area here. Because, yeah, like I said, when the light is coming from above, that area will be in shadow. Because the eyebrow is, well, it protrudes. You have that bone ridge there in your skull, and it will block the light. So beneath there, you will have shadow. And I've just picked the skin tone, and I have set the multiply brush to very low opacity to softly glaze over these areas. Now I'm using the overlay brush to add some color variation. I always like doing that using oranges and reds And with my lighten brush, I'm adding some light areas now. I've picked a light skin tone and I'm roughly adding these light areas. And still there's no need to be all tidy. I'm using my skin blender right now, but I see that I had set it to the brush and not to the smudge tool. Got it right now, the smudge tool and the skin blender. It's part of my skin brushes set, the volume 2. And yeah, it leaves a nice skinny skin-like texture when blending. Because right now the painting was all messy, but this is kind of the transition to where I want everything to be more tidy and a more finished, well, not finished, but you know what I mean. I want to get that texture, and I will start, well, tidying things up, getting into more detail. And for the iris, I'm using my standard blender because I don't want any skin texture on the iris or on the eyeball. I want a more soft blend there. Yeah, I think the basis of the painting is looking good now. So yeah, this is kind of the next phase in the painting process. I feel like there are, for me, I think at least 3 phases, maybe 4. I always start with the sketch, and the sketch is my mean to get all the proportions right, even though I can still adjust things later on, of course. But the sketch is well, it's the form. It's all about the form, the edges and shapes, getting those right. And then the next phase is to add value. In the next phase, I focus on shadow and light and on a base color for my painting. And in that phase, I still keep it all loose, and you can see my brushwork. It can still be a bit messy. Then going to the next phase, the third phase, I blend my colors, add some more texture, and that's the transition to the more detailed phase, to really refining things and to be able to turn off my sketch layer. That's what I'm working towards right now. The sketch layer is still visible. I have it set to a low opacity, and I'm using my brushes to refine everything and to be able to turn that sketch layer off later. And then after that, we'll have a 4th phase in which I will add really those final details. And the reason that I'm painting on a duplicated layer is just, well, to save the process of the painting. In Procreate, I usually try to paint on just one layer, because painting on one layer enables me to blend the colors using the smudge tool. Because using that smudge finger, you can only blend and smudge colors that are on one layer, that are on a layer together. So when colors are on separate layers, you won't be able to blend them using that tool. So that's why in Procreate, at least, I'm always working on one layer, unless I'm painting eyelashes, for instance. I like putting those on a separate layer, but everything else I try to paint mostly on one layer. But duplicating your layer is a way to save your process, because yeah, you don't really have a save option in Procreate. And this way, if I do something on my layer and I don't like it, I can always go back to my previous layer, the one that I duplicated. And also I like sharing process images on Instagram, so that's also a plus. This way I can show my process, my painting process. Just adding some color to the irises, because in irises there is a lot of color variation. Alright, now I have picked the lighten line brush, and I like using that to add light details. I'm working on that lower edge here, that lower eyelid. Because the light is coming from above, you will see a light area here. A light edge. And of course, I'm looking at the reference picture here. Adding that highlight on the eyeball. And that already adds so much life to the eyes. Some highlights on the white of the eye, because it's a very moist area. If your eyes are healthy anyway, it's a pretty moist ball, so you will find highlights there. Using a skim brush from my skim brush set here to add some subtle skin texture. I'm adding some light, and this way I can add light and color and a little bit of skin texture at the same time. It's also called the subtle skin brush, so that makes sense, right? Adding some red tones. Also using some pink. And now it's time for the lashes, for the eyelashes. As you just saw, I have made a new layer. Because like I said previously, I like painting eyelashes on a separate layer. Now I am refining that upper eyelid a bit to give myself some space to make those eyelashes. I saw that I needed to adjust that a little bit. And I'm using the lashes brush to paint in these lashes on that separate layer. And when painting or drawing lashes, I don't go from left to right, or well, in any order. I like to go all over the eye and switch from left to right, middle, to balance these lashes a bit. Because if I would start on the left and move to the right. So it sounds a bit like a dance. If I go from left and move to the right, then I would feel like I have less control over the eyelashes. I like working on the eyelashes as a whole and look at the overall look of the eyelashes and yeah, work like that. I'm going to darken this this eyelid a little bit. I thought it was a little bit too light. And moving back to the eyelashes. And I wanted to add this darker shadow here. Now I'm moving back to those lashes. And I'm starting to work on the left eye. And again, not just moving from right to left or left to right. Working all over that eye to balance these eyelashes out. And eyelashes, they grow all the way from left to right, but going towards the corner of the eye, the inner corner of the eye, the eyelashes will become thinner and less prominent. The outside lashes, so on the outer corner of the eye, those will be more prominent than the eyelashes on the inside of your eye towards your nose. So keep this in mind. And also, eyelashes tend to clump together a little bit. So don't make all these separate eyelashes all neatly in a row, but give them some life. They aren't all that tidy. They move, they grow in different directions, clump together, especially those lower eyelashes. They are a bit lighter than the upper eyelashes, a bit thinner, and these also, they clump together a little bit. And these also grow all the way from left to right, all the way to the inside of the eye, but near the inside of the eye. So yeah, towards your nose, those eyelashes will be very thin and sometimes barely visible. So don't paint them too thick. And sometimes in some eyes they are so subtle that you only have to paint in a few. Like these eyes obviously are wearing mascara, so they are darker, these eyelashes, than when you would paint a natural eye without makeup. Now I'm going to start painting the eyebrows, and I'm using a hairbrush. I tried using this hairbrush first, but didn't like that much. So now I'm laying down a base with this with this hairbrush. Just a base for, from painting in those loose eyebrow hairs later on. So this is just a base. I decided first I wanted to paint the eyebrows on a separate layer, and then I decided no, I'll just put these lashes. I'll just merge these two layers. I wanted to work on this one layer. Now I'm using a loose hairbrush to paint in, or to draw in, these separate hairs. And it takes some work. It's you need to be patient to draw in these hairs, but the result will be cool. And think about when drawing in eyebrow hairs, think about the direction of the hair, the direction in which they are growing. Usually the hairs on the lower side, they will move upwards a little bit, and then you have these hairs on, well, on the upper side of the eyebrow, and they will be growing downwards a little bit. And these eyebrows are a little bit brushy. But of course you also encounter very neat and tidy eyebrows in life, and then, well, then you can't work in a messy, brushy way like this. And don't worry about the exact direction of the hair, especially in eyebrows like these. Gonna keep it a bit messy. And sometimes when drawing hairs like this, I don't start at the root of the hair, but sometimes I like making my strokes the other way around. So from the end of the hair towards, well, where the root would be. So you don't have to like grow these hairs with your brush from root to end of the hair, but you can also work the other way around, just whatever you prefer. I mix it up a little bit. Also adding some light hairs. Here I'm using the blender brush again to blend these skin tones a little bit more. And then these eyes are almost finished, I think. I'm gonna add some freckles to this painting, to the skin. I've made a new layer, and I'm using one of my freckle brushes to put in these freckles. I'm randomly placing them all over. I will remove freckles later on, so I'm not worrying at all about, well, I'm worrying, no, I'm not worrying, but I do mind where I'm placing them, but I can make it really messy because I will remove them later on. And I'm using some oranges and some browns. Now I'm adding some smaller freckles on the face. And now I'm using a mask, and I filled it with black, and now I've picked a white brush to paint the freckles right back in. And because the opacity is set to pen pressure, I can make some of these freckles very subtle, and I can make some darker. I am in full control of where I want the freckles to be. I'm going to add some skin sparkle, just some light here in the corners of the eye. But then I noticed I was painting on the layer mask and not on the correct layer. It can happen to anyone. So now I'm on the correct layer, adding some light sparkle to the corners of the eye. I'm using a really light aqua blue, actually. And I'm really just experimenting a little bit, checking out what I like, how big I want them to be. And now, another mistake. I'm trying to add some, I was trying to add some dark grain, some dark texture, but I was still using the light blue, so that's not working. But now I have the darker color, and yeah, I like this grain brush. It also adds some skinny skin-like texture, just some spots. And the lighten brush from this variant, is that a correct word? The grain brush lighten version, I'm using this to also add some texture, but now using a lighter color. And it just gives some subtle skin texture. These are really the final touches of the painting. Just tweaking things a little bit, adding some shadow here with my other skin brush. So this is really the fourth phase of my painting process. So first we had the sketch, then the rough colors, then blending and refining shapes, and now finally the final details phase. And I believe that the first two phases are actually the most important to get a good result in the end. You need your sketch to be good, to be a solid base. Work on those proportions, and then next working on those values in the second phase, working on the values and your base colors. That will really help you in the whole painting process. If those first two phases, if you went through those and got a nice solid base, then the rest will be that much easier. And sometimes you don't need that much detail in the end, because your base is there, and all the details, that's just extra. You know, I'm looking at this video while talking. The sped up, is that a word? The sped up version of my time lapse, 200% speed version, and I really can't see what I'm doing. Oh, I'm doing something now. But sometimes I just lose the brush, and I did turn on the brush thing that you can see my brush on screen, but sometimes it seems like it's not working. Not sure why. But anyway, I'm not seeing what I'm doing right now. That means that it's really the final detail. Oh, yeah. There, now I can see it. I wanted to say that's really the final detail phase, but yeah, I decided to add some more light to the white of the eye here. And I used the lighten brush and roughly adding some light, and then using the blender, the smudge tool, to blend it a bit. Adding some lighter highlights here. Yeah, and these are really the final touches of the painting. Now I hope you found it helpful to see this whole process here in Procreate. Next time, I'm not sure if it really will be next time, but soon, this month anyway, I will be painting some other eyes, and I will be talking real time. I will be talking while painting, and I will show you how I sketch, how I add my values, and I will try to talk you through it and to show you everything I do and share all my thoughts while drawing. Even though I really find it hard to draw paints while talking. I don't know, it's hard to I can't even find the words right now. It's hard to split my attention. Yeah, that's it. It's hard to split my attention between talking and trying to think of what I should be saying and painting and thinking about all the proportions and getting things right. So, and I also get a little bit nervous painting and talking at the same time because I'm afraid I'll mess it up. But yeah, I'll do it. I'll do it. I'll do my best to explain everything I do to you. And if there's anything specific you would like me to talk about in the next eye painting video, let me know. And you can still send in eyes for me to draw. So if you want anything specific, let me know. Okay, thanks for watching. See you next time.